everyone, how you doing today? My name's Kirsty, this is weekly reading vlog 12 and we are kickstarting with a library book haul. So, tiny bit of drama this morning. We went down to the library. I went to go in and realised that one of the entrances was blocked. And I was like, So I went round and then there was a sign saying that the library was closed and had relocated. So we were like, crap. Thankfully, it was literally just around the corner. So my uncle kindly drove me round and then he waited in the car while I went in and had a look. Unfortunately, though, because they'd relocated, it's a much smaller venue. And so even though I looked online yesterday, I wrote down a bunch of books that they said they had in stock on the shelf. They weren't there, they're in storage. And the only thing that I will say that has really annoyed me is they were like, oh, well, you can always reserve those books, but it's 50p each. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but if these are books that would have been on the shelf if they were in the other venue, it's not my fault that the library has temporarily relocated. So why am I being charged when I wouldn't have been charged when it was in its normal building? That kind of annoyed me. It was like, they should waiver the fee for that particular scenario. So of the 5 books that I wrote down, 2 were on the shelf and I was able to get, and the most important one of these was the Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, because this is on the long list for the Women's Prize, and of course it's one of the chunkiest books ever, so do I say what these books are about? Yeah, let's talk about what these books are about. So the main character is 16. Her husband takes her on a trip in 1561. And turns out he's taken her on a trip with the sole intention of killing her. Interesting. I then picked up Detransition Baby. This was just a random one that I saw on the shelf and I was just like, ooh, I've heard things about this. I've wanted to pick it up, but never got round to it. Oh god, the writing's tiny. No, why is the writing so tiny? I know. Yeah, so this is basically following trans people, and one of the characters is detransitioning, and then another one who either is or has detransitioned gets somebody pregnant, and then they're all kind of weaved together. I know that this was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction. I know it caused a lot of outrage, and I'm like, get over yourselves. Trans women are women. It counts. And I like that the Women's Prize stood by that decision and said the same thing. So thank you to the Women's Prize for actually standing up for women. And yeah, so I picked that one up. What was the other one that was actually on my list? Let's find that. I think it was this one. Yes, Julie Kagawa, The Iron Raven. That was one that I just saw and thought, yeah. And it's like telling Puck from Midsummer Night's Dream. It's telling his side of the story and things. And it just sounds like it's going to be fun. And it's another one that I'm going to try and do because it's like fae and fairies and chaos and stuff like that. And then all the rest are just random ones that I've either seen or heard of and just thought I'll grab and maybe I'll get round to reading at some point. First up we have Ace of Spades. I think, is this Dark Academia? No, it's contemporary. An anonymous texter, Aces, is bringing 2 students' dark secrets to light. So that, I know I've heard a lot of good things about this. Next up we have Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. This is actually the 52 and 52 reading challenge. One of the prompts this year is to read a book by Octavia E. Butler, and a lot of people have been bitching and moaning about it because a lot of them have just picked the shortest book, which unfortunately is one of her most graphic books, and then have been bitching and moaning about the content. And it's like, well, if you're just picking it because it's short, like actually pick a book that might interest you. And I've never really heard of Octavia E. Butler. It's not my genre, it's not my type of book that I would pick up. But I saw this one, it's reasonably short, which was one of the things that attracted me. But they only had 2 books on the shelf by her, and this was book 1. And they also had the second book in this series. It was like, when Lilith Liapo wakes in a small white room with no doors or windows, she remembers a devastating war and a husband and child long lost to her. She finds herself living among the Oankali, a strange race who intervened in the fate of humanity hundreds of years before. They spared those that they could from the ruined earth and suspended them in a deep, long sleep. Over centuries, the Unkali learned from the past, cured disease and healed the world. Now they want Lilith to lead her people back home, but salvation comes at a price. To restore humanity, it must be changed forever. Sounds interesting. I'll give it a go. Then we had The Magpie Society by Zoe Sugg and Amy McCulloch. And I remember this one kind of coming onto my radar. The only reason I didn't pick it up earlier was because I was a bit like, it's dark academia, I think. I'm sure it is. But I'll give it a try. Basically, a student found dead on the beach, a web of unanswered questions, someone ready to strike again. Apparently, I seem to be in a murdery, thrillery kind of mood. And then the final one that I just saw in the romance section that I thought was kind of cool was Spoiler Alert, and it just says, a match made in fandom. And I'm like, okay. And it's basically like, Marcus has a secret. While he may be the star of the biggest show on TV, he's also a prolific fan fiction writer. And basically he writes his frustrations out with the show through his fan fiction, and if anyone ever finds out, he could be fired. You've got April, who is also a fanfic writer and a cosplayer, and cosplays as one of the characters from the show, gets a load of negative backlash because of her size, and Marcus asks her out to spite everybody. So that's going to be kind of cool. I feel like I've got a very varied mix of books here. So, you know, we've got some hard-hitting contemporaries, we've got some adult romance, we've got some YA, we've got a bit of sci-fi, and I'm quite happy with this little selection. One thing I am going to be doing, I think, is I am not feeling great today. I've woken up, my head's a little bit funny, I didn't sleep very well last night. I have a problem in my neck right now that when I turn my head in a certain direction, I get really bad pain that goes all down into the shoulder and down into my shoulder blade and right the way down to the base of my spine, and it woke me up multiple times in the night because it was hurting so bad. I kept turning in my sleep onto the wrong side, which was then making it worse. So I am thinking either a bed day or a sofa day. I just need to upload last week's vlog. I might postpone that, I don't know. But yeah, I'm not feeling too great. So I have some breakfast, lunch, and it's quite cool. These are sausage rolls from Morrison's, and what I really like is they stamp the sausage roll with the type that it is. So these ones are Lincolnshire and they've stamped it. I just think that's really cute. And then the regular ones are just stamped with pork, etc. But they only had Lincolnshire or cheese and onion rolls today, and my uncle was like, well, I know that you can't stand cheese and onion rolls and I don't want 4. So I think my plan is going to be just curl up in bed with some of these books and just do some reading, because I haven't had a good reading day in forever, so I just want to sit and read. I'm going to go do that, and I'll speak to you guys later. Bye.
2 hours later.
Well, this manga is not what I expected. Good job my fan's on, because we be blushing. Ooh. as you can tell from that clip, I have caught up on a lot of the reading I'd fallen behind on, particularly the graphic novels. My hair looks like crap because I've been lying on it all day. But in particular, the graphic novels, the manga, and I've made a start on a new book. So I think it's been a pretty damn good day today. So let's talk through what's been going on. My shoulder is still really hurting, but I've had my little like heat thing that I've been lying there with this wedged on my back, and I just keep massaging it. And I've noticed as the day's gone on, I'm starting to feel like there's a bit of improvement, and then I move and it's like, oh, maybe not. So yeah, I've just been been lying there, and my laptop, I'm lucky, it's one of these laptops where I can turn it into a tablet. So I've had it like this, and then when I've been reading, I've just had it in this position, and I've been able to be a bit more flexible with and having it like this, so I can alter the screen angle so that I'm not sitting there with my head bowed down and I'm not straining on the back of my neck. So that's been quite good because it's been allowing me to sit in the position I needed to sit in order to give my head a good rest. I'll talk you through the books and kind of what I thought about each of them, and then I need to go down and get some food on. So I started off on Scribd with the Song of Yoru and Asa. I did not expect that to be what it was. I thought it was going to be quite a cute boys' love story about guys in a band realising that they have feelings for each other. While there was an element in there of that, there was so much sex in that book, and it was uncensored. I did not expect it. There were a lot of blowjobs, there were a lot of sex scenes, and I just did not expect it. And it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. There was assault, there was rape, and it was... At first I was like, okay, this is cool, and then when it went down that route, I was like, oh, this is not comfortable now. And by the end of the manga, I was like, that's not what I thought it was going to be, and honestly, I don't think I would recommend this, because it became more about that side of things than it did actually about the relationship and the music, which is what I thought it was going to be more about. And yeah, I haven't run it through Corpal, but I've got a feeling it's going to either be a 2 or a 3 star for that one. And it was just... it was messed up. And I know I kind of like some messed up stuff, but it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and it left me feeling very uncomfortable. Then I moved on to Fence. On Scribd, they don't have the volumes, but they have all the individual sort of chapters up to 12. So I've read all of those now. I read the equivalent of volume 2 and 3. Both are 4 stars. I had a great time. I really like the cast of characters. I like how the storyline's going. And then now it's brought in, I can't remember his name. Basically, Nicholas Cox in this series is the illegitimate son of Robert Costi, or Costa, I'm not sure how it, or Cost. It's one of those 3, I think. And basically, so you've got Nicholas, who's the illegitimate son that was raised by a single mother who just doesn't really take any interest in him. And then he's got his wife and his biological son, who's also a fencer, whose name has slipped my mind very briefly, who is Seiji's, who's like the other protagonist of the story. He's the main rival, and yeah, there's just been a lot of tension there, especially as Seiji realises that Nick has similar fighting style to this other guy, Jesse, I think maybe, and is basically I think people are starting to wonder if there's a link there, because currently no one knows. Like, Nick knows that he is Robert Costa's illegitimate son, but nobody else does, and I think it's going to start to come out in the next volume. Unfortunately, volume 4, which is Rivals, which is where it's going to get really juicy and good because it's also the first time that Nick is meeting his half brother in person, and I think if it comes out it's going to be really, really, really good, and it's going to be very tension, and I think that weirdly that's going to be what finally brings Nicholas and Seiji together, or at least I hope so. But still having a fantastic time with this series. Then I read I Hear the Sunspot Limit 3, which is the last one that they have on Scribd. They don't have the final, like there's another sequel to it that's come out in the last year or so, and they don't have the translation of that yet. But I read Limit 3 because that released on the 11th, and it was really, really sweet, really, really cute. Again, haven't run it through, but I think it's going to be either a 4.5 or a 5. We got a little bit more depth from a couple of the characters, but certainly Ryu, who was the one that I was saying about in my February wrap-up, who was deaf from birth. We got a really heart-to-heart conversation with him and his brother, and we just learned a little bit more about all of the cast, and there were just some really emotional, beautiful moments. And then it was really lovely that Taichi finally was the one to actually make a move, and he was the one to be the assertive one and be like, dude, I have feelings for you, and it was just really, really lovely, and it wrapped up really well. And then the final one on Scribd was Would You Like to Be a Family, which is a manga. At first I thought it was just one story, and I was kind of disappointed that it was actually 3 short stories, but story 2 was uncomfortable because it was kind of like a high schooler saw this college guy break up with his best friend's brother, and he's like, I like him, and then basically just pressurizes this guy into dating him and forces the guy to eventually date him. So that one I didn't really enjoy. The last one I kind of didn't enjoy because it just felt a bit bland and generic, but the first story was really, really cute. I wish that first story where you've got one guy who's a bit of the office loner, he doesn't really interact with anyone. You've got the really sociable, outgoing guy who was the adoptive father of his friend's son, and he adopted the son after they died. So you've got like, he's a single parent, and they work out that they're both lonely and they decide to be together, and it was just really, really cute. But then all of a sudden it went into the next story, and then at the very end of the book we got like a glimpse into the future where it's like 10 years later or something, because the little boy was now going into high school and getting his high school uniform and was like, oh, we really did become a family. And I was like, I would have loved to have actually spent the whole manga with them and watching the young boy grow up and go through the life changes. But the one thing I will say, I did like that throughout all 3 there was very little stigma towards gay people, and even when they were together as a couple out in public holding hands, there wasn't any kind of backlash or any sort of comment. And it was just nice that it was a story that focused on the relationships rather than what everybody else thought about that relationship, and I really appreciated that. I just wish that it had been way more detailed and way more developed. So again, I think it's only going to be about a 3-star for that one. We shall see. And then the final book that I read and started, I haven't read it, God no. I've started it, I've done well. I'm on page 48 and I've only read it for about 20 minutes. Is The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell. I picked this up this morning at the library, and this one follows, it's based on a real person called Lucrezia di Cosimo de Medici. Sorry if you're Italian, I just butchered that. But it follows, she was a real person who got married at 13 and then died when she was 16, and it's widely believed that she didn't die of natural causes, as was insinuated at the time, and there are multiple theories as to what actually happened with her, and this is kind of like a fictional take on her story and how she grew up and what her marriage was like. And the starting chapter is her as she realises that her husband's going to kill her, and then it goes back in time to when she's born. And I quite liked that first chapter with her mother and how she came about being conceived, and the mother's thoughts on, and saying that like it was believed back then that your child will take on traits based on how they were conceived. So for this one, the mum was in a room where there was like loads of maps, and while it was happening. But it was saying that she was quite distracted and she was looking at maps and thinking about far off lands, and so it felt like her daughter was born quite wild and always thinking of these things and never really focusing on things because of that. And it was just really interesting. And then her father just bought a tiger across from Bengal, and so she's just had a moment where she was meeting this tiger and they kind of had a connection, and it's so far very beautiful. I don't think I'm going to enjoy it so much when she gets married, but I am quite enjoying it so far. I did notice though, I only read for 20 minutes and I was sitting in my usual position, and I can already feel my back and neck are starting to get a bit sore again. So yeah, I thought I would just talk about this one, and now I'm going to go get some food. I've either got beef hot pot or chicken korma tonight. I haven't decided which one is going to make me feel less sick. I need to go get food, and I probably should go and say hello to my uncle. I mean, I did see him this morning. He did kindly take me down to the library and we spent a bit of time and we fed the squirrels, even if one tried to eat him instead of the snack, which I will insert here to show you. So it'll be nice to go say hello and actually get some time with the cat today, because I've kind of neglected her because I've been in bed all day. They're not very smart.
Koke,
苔
kau,
買う
eki,
駅 駅
iku,
行く
koko,
ここ
kao,
顔
aoi,
青い
kyoku,
記憶あいうえおか聞くこけいけ買う駅行くここ会う声書くおけ買う家秋言う赤い青い記憶絵描き. Hey everyone, so not much of a vlog again this week, and there's a few reasons for that. I am having a bit of a low mood. I am struggling to want to read and to be motivated. I have read a little bit. I am now 110 or so pages into The Marriage Portrait by Maggie O'Farrell, which is one of the books on the Women's Prize long list, and it's a strange one because while I'm enjoying the writing and so far it's okay, I'm kind of bored, and I'm like, well, I'm 100 pages in and there's still 300 pages to go, and I'm not really sure what else more there is that can be brought into this book. It feels like it's already kind of said everything it needed to say, and I'm like, maybe 100 pages, but I don't see where 300 pages of stuff is going to come in. And I've been encouraged to maybe DNF it, so I want to give it a little bit longer and then decide. But other than that, I've not read anything. Last week I had a fantastic week. I was really high energy. I got loads of output done. I was bouncing. I was like on a motor and I was on it, and I was waking up at 5 a.m. every day, and I felt really good. I then had a couple of days where I was a bit migrainey and not so great, and then gradually I've started to slip. I'm nowhere near what I was. Like, I am still going to sleep before midnight most days, but I'm starting to really wake up groggy again. The spring weather doesn't always help my head. When weather goes from sunny to stormy, well, rainy to sunny again, that plays around with the different lights and things, and that can really trigger it. And I have also had a really bad flare-up of my eczema, as you can see on my head here. All of this is all just eczema and psoriasis from having to use my emergency supplies of, well, it turns out Head and Shoulders is not good for sensitive skin. And it caused me to react. I then was itching, and next thing I know, I've got a really bad flare-up, which made me not feel great. I also had a bit of an accident the other night. It's settled down now. The bruising is starting to go. The lump is still there when I feel it, but otherwise it's pretty much settled now. But a few nights ago, I hit my head. There's no wild story to it. I literally leaned forward to plug in my charger, forgot the distance between the angle I was at and my chest of drawers, and my head met the corner of them, and they're a really pointy, sharp corner. So I just went boom and dazed myself. And then the next day in Hobbycraft, I went and walked into something and I really hurt my arm, and I've just had a really bad week for hurting myself and being clumsy, and I've also been very migrainey and not feeling very good. So yeah, I've had a bit of a low esteem, low mood week. That being said, I've done a little bit more with my artsy stuff. During the week I got paid. I went on to Scrawlerbox because I used to be subscribed to them. I haven't been able to afford it for all of the last year, but they do these little art boxes, and so you get this box, and when you open it, it has goodies in. And at the moment they are doing something different, so they've closed down their online, or they're closing down their shop for buying previous boxes, and they've got a buy one get two free deal. And I was like, well, these things are 20 quid each normally, so I'm getting 60 quid's worth of stuff for £20, and I was like, can't really not. And so yesterday I got some of these watercolours. It's like watercolour paint on the sheet, and I think they're amazing. So you've got the pigment on the back, and I just played around, and I messed it up completely, but I was just playing around with skin tones and just seeing what they were like on the page, and I had quite a fun time with it. It's really weird. It looks really dark on the screen, but in person, and I didn't quite let it dry before I did my inking, and it's just, you learn. It's the first time I've tried to do anything like this, so you live and you learn. I am also working, I can show you it because I haven't worked on it since I showed them. So I haven't worked on it since I showed them, but Ren from the Reading Ren is graduating from university next month, so I'm super, super proud. I said that I wanted to get them a gift, and they were like, no, you're not doing that. I'd rather you do something like colour something or draw something for me. So I decided to do a painting, and I am working on this. So black and gold background, distressed background, and then I've got the start of the skull. I haven't yet completed it. This is just the base layer that I'm going to then build on. And I have other things that I'm adding to it, but I will not be revealing those, and because this is the progress that Ren has seen, and I just wanted to get their seal of approval and see how they thought. So yeah, I now am just going to build up on this, layer it, and I will take photos and I will do a video when it's finished, but I won't upload it until it's completely done. This is the first time that I've done a full, for me this is huge, painting on canvas board, because I was going to do it on a proper canvas, but then I realised sending it to Australia, it's wood, canvas is on wood, and I was just worried about customs and restrictions, so I thought if I do it on a canvas board and then Ren can frame it as they see fit, it gives a bit more flexibility of what you can do with it. But yeah, I quite like how this is coming out so far. I think, considering, like I said, first time I've worked with acrylics on some sort of board, or just doing more than just playing around in my sketchbooks. I'm like, cool. All in, I think so far I've spent about 3.5, 4 hours getting this to this state. I'm like, about 3.5 of those hours was just the skull. So it's going to be a long process. But yeah, so again, another week where I've been doing other things, but I've been kind of taking care of my mental health. But I didn't want to not put anything up. But if people are happy with how the vlogs have been and are just happy to have any sort of content from me where I check in and talk about what I'm doing, then I'll continue to do that. As for right now, I am currently, as you saw from the clip, I'm doing some Japanese lessons. I'm usually on Japanese Pod, but again, at the moment, it's like £15 a month, and that's just not in my budget right at the moment. So I've just found today Kanshido. There's like a monthly limit on what you can do, but what I've seen so far, it does seem very good. And then I've got my trusty little hiragana and katakana notebook that I'm just sort of practicing my lettering. And as you can hear from the speaking, I'm practicing. When I do the mini reviews, I listen to them and then I copy everything that they say. And certain words, like when I was a teenager, I tried to kind of learn Japanese. I was watching something yesterday and they were talking about koibito, and I was like, oh, I know what that means. That means boyfriend, girlfriend, because that means lovers or something around those. And then on when I was doing this, it tells you what each of the words means. And it was like, yeah, and I was like, oh, that means no. And I was like, ha, I knew that one. So it's like, I know certain words and phrases, but now I want to learn proper and actually learn the language and learn how to properly speak. If I can get to a point where I can watch an episode of like one of my K-drama, well, obviously I'm not learning Korean, but when I'm watching my dramas, it would be fantastic if I can eventually get to a point where I can just, you know, be doing something else, have it on in the background and still not necessarily understand everything, but be able to at least follow somewhat of the storyline and be like, I actually understood what they're talking about. But obviously that is very far off. I'm probably going to need to do about 3 or 5 years worth of studying to get to that point. And being ADHD, long-term studying, not my thing, but I'm going to try. And I am, you know, I've actually got access to tools that I've never accessed before. So let's see how we go. Yeah, who knows if I will have any updates tomorrow. Probably not. But if I do not come back and I have got no more updates, then I will simply say thank you for tuning in. Hopefully next week I'll have a little bit more to talk about and a little bit more to do. But for now, I just seem to be in a bit of a reading slump, and as Ren asked me the other day, is it that I am just picking up books that I feel like I should be reading rather than books that I want to read? And it kind of made me think, I think that might be it. April, obviously, Magical Readathon, I will be following a TBR, but I'm thinking May, I might take the entirety of May off and just completely mood read and see if that maybe helps boost a bit and pick me up. And then June, fingers crossed, I am hoping to have a readathon set up ready to go for June, but I'm still in the process of working all of that out. All I will say is that it's going to be kind of a choose your own adventure, and there's going to be different paths that you can choose from, and in order to fulfill your main quest you have to do certain things along the way to be able to then do the final quest and become what you are destined to be. So that's all I'm going to say on that one. Anyway, I'm going to get back to my lesson, but I'll speak to you guys next week, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead.